The basics of the 9/11 attacks. On September 11, 2001, America was attacked by an Islamic extremist group called Al-Qaeda. Al-Qaeda sent 19 militants onto 4 planes to hijack them. Some of the hijackers took pilot lessons in America, and others used box cutters to force their way into the cockpits of the planes. 2 of the planes flew into both of the World Trade Centers in New York City. Both of these buildings tumbled to the ground, one into the Pentagon, and one was taken back over by the Americans on the plane that crashed in Shanksville, Pennsylvania. Osama bin Laden was the mastermind behind these terrifying actions. He started these radical beliefs when he was just a kid in college. In 1988, bin Laden assembled Al-Qaeda and was more focused on terrorism than military campaigns. Bin Laden wanted to prove that, in his own words, Al-Qaeda would be the masterminds of the world, not the Americans. This led him on a mission with one goal: to destroy America. Next, I'll talk about the loss. In total, 2,977 innocent Americans lost their lives on that day. Unfortunately, many of those lives came from one of the most populated cities in America, New York City, where 2,763 people died in total. Among those deaths were brave first responders, with 343 firefighters, 23 police officers, 37 Port Authorities. These people could have easily ran away, but they showed some patriotism for America by running in those buildings, risking their lives to save some lives. 189 people died at the Pentagon, and 44 heroic people died in the crash landing in Shanksville, Pennsylvania. Over 91,500 distraught Americans helped clean up the rubble at Ground Zero, which is where the towers fell. These people risked their lives because years after the cleanup, a lot of cases and respiratory problems arose. These people were sent to sort through debris, recover human remains, and to look for evidence from the terrorist attacks. After everything was said and done, nearly 1.8 million tons of debris was sent to landfills. Of that 1.8 million tons, they found 4,257 human remains, 54,000 personal items, and some pieces of evidence. The Homeland Security Act of 2002 created the Department of Homeland Security. This law was signed and passed under President George W. Bush. This department is responsible for the prevention of terrorism attacks, border security, and immigration. They were assigned the task to investigate everything that led up to 9/11. 9/11 also impacted America's economy. The stock exchange fell 7.1%, and around 143,000 jobs were lost in New York City a month for 3 months. Overall, the damage to the World Trade Centers cost around $60 billion, and it cost a total of $750 million just to get rid of the debris.
There have been many terrorist attacks in the U.S. since 9/11, but 4 really caught my attention. The 4 are the shoe bomber, the Boston Marathon bombing, the New York attack, and the Pittsburgh synagogue shooting. All of the attacks have been within the 2000s and range from 2001 to 2018. They have mostly been located in the northeast region of the U.S. The shoe bomber was Richard Reed, and on December 2, 2001, he attempted to detonate a bomb inside of his shoe while on American Airlines on a flight from Paris, France to Miami, Florida. Officials believed he went to Afghanistan and Iraq to work and train with Al-Qaeda. His motive was that he was in Al-Qaeda and viewed himself as an enemy of America. He was also a soldier under the command of Osama bin Laden. On April 15, 2013, a bombing by 2 Chechen brothers, Dzhokhar and Tamerlan Tsarnaev, struck the finish line of the Boston Marathon. It was approximated that the bombs were 12 minutes and 190 meters apart. Tamerlan was fatally shot and, in an effort of escape by his brother, was ran over by a stolen vehicle. It is believed that their motive was extremist Islamic beliefs and wars in Iraq and Afghanistan. The New York attack after 9/11 was by a man named Sayfullo Saipov. He was in a vehicle and struck bicyclists and pedestrians. He proceeded to exit the vehicle and kill 8 people and injure 12, including himself. The attack happened on Halloween, October 31st in 2017, shortly after 3 p.m. He is believed to be motivated by Islamic State. The Pittsburgh synagogue shooting happened on October 27, 2018, by a man of the name of Robert Bowers. He opened fire on the worshippers. 11 were killed and 6 were injured. He hated the HIAS. They were a group for refugee Jews to aid them, but he believed they brought in invaders to kill our people. His motivation was that he wanted all Jews to die.
Al-Qaeda is an Arabic terrorist organization founded by Osama bin Laden in the late 1980s. It first began as a logistical network to support Muslims who were fighting against the Soviet Union in the Afghan War. However, after the Soviets withdrew from the war in 1989, the organization dispersed, but continued to go against what its leaders thought were foreign presence in Islamic lands. Al-Qaeda merged with other militant Islamic organizations including the Jihad and the Islamic Group, training thousands in paramilitary skills. They then went out and engaged in many terrorist attacks involving U.S. embassies in Kenya, Tanzania, and in New York, leading to a counterattack on the Taliban from the U.S. The Taliban would take children between the ages of 13 and 17 and train them. They were trained to enter combat, plant explosive devices, and other various military operations. Usually, children were taken to madrasas, or Islamic religious schools, and went through military training. Many of these children were deployed in combat. The Al-Qaeda organization acted in retaliation for America's support of Israel and for its involvement in the Persian Gulf War. They also disapproved of America's continued presence in the Middle East. They had been planning this attack for a while, as several hijackers actually lived in the U.S. for more than a year and had been taking flying lessons. Since the attack on 9/11, Al-Qaeda has unfortunately evolved and still remains a threat. It is known as the shadow of its former self. However, any attack on the U.S. today has been significantly degraded. Although many leaders have been killed, it is still considered a learning organization in the resiliency of terrorist organizations.
President Bush was not in Washington when the attacks occurred. He was going to speak to some children at a Florida school. I looked at the faces of the children in front of me. I thought about the contrast between the brutality of the attacks and the innocence of those children. Millions like them would soon be counting on me to protect them. I was determined not to let them down. This quote from Bush shows the resolve he has to protect the American people at all costs. After the attacks, TSA, or Transportation Security Administration, implemented multi-layered security measures to enhance the aviation security, including pre-screening of passengers. This was to make safer air travel, but it caused a heavy inconvenience to people traveling in long lines, metal detectors, and restrictions on what you can bring onto a plane, all to make the American people feel safe again. Al-Qaeda, the group that organized the attack on the World Trade Center, was the first group, along with the Taliban in Afghanistan, to be targeted with the War on Terror. Their leader, Saddam Hussein, was taken out, and America and other allied nations helped Afghanistan rebuild its country. Osama bin Laden went on in Afghanistan television declaring that he would free his country of the oppressive Americans and return his country to the people. As well in the Middle East, on March 19, 2003, America with other allied nations attacked Baghdad, the capital of Iraq. President Bush went on national television and told the American people the threat Iraq poses to the safety and security of our nation. Iraq was building and stockpiling weapons of mass destruction and planned to use them against anyone who got in the way of them completing their religious quest. And so, the Iraq War started, and the long war on terror grows with it. Now in the year 2019 through 2020, President Trump wanted to pull out most, if not all, of the troops out of Afghanistan. This is due to a Taliban resurgence that now has them in two-thirds of the country. President Trump and the Taliban made an agreement for peace as long as the United States pulled out its armed forces.
Racism in the U.S. of Muslims. By definition, racism is prejudice or discrimination of a person or group of people based of race or ethnic group. Muslims began to face such great racism in the U.S. around the time after the terrorist attack of 9/11. Nine 11 has influenced how some Americans view Muslims. After 9/11, the U.S. put in place the USA Patriot Act and the National Security Entry-Exit Registration System. Though it never targeted Muslims directly, it has greatly impacted their lives. There has been an overall bias of Muslims in the recent years because some people believe they are all bad and violent, which is far from the truth. Continuing on, statistics show that about 75% of people have reported discrimination against Muslims. All types of racism are seen, ranging from hate speech to very violent crimes against them. It is also seen in Islamophobia, which is, in short, people greatly fearing and hating Muslims, which causes grief for the people being discriminated against and hated for what they are. As for assault against Muslims, in the year when 9/11 occurred, the assaults against Muslims were about 91 reported attacks, but in 2016 they began to grow even greater. The reported number of attacks was 127, as you can see on the chart on the right. Not only did attacks against Muslims occur in 2001, but there were 296 victims who reported anti-Muslim intimidation. Though the numbers had lowered throughout the years, it is still a high number of incidents reported. Overall, 9/11 has had a great impact on the U.S. and changed the world as people knew it back then. But the racism that Muslims receive even daily is not morally right, and people need to see that not all Muslims are bad. They were given a bad representation when 9/11 occurred, but it is not fair to the innocent people of Islam to be receiving such hate.
The Iraq War was started by President Bush on March 18, 2003, and was ended by President Obama on December 15, 2011. While Barack Obama was running for president back in 2008, which was the height of his presidential campaign, he made promises to end the war and kept his word throughout the entire campaign. This was his pledge to the American people, so when he came to office, he went forward with this pledge on ending the Iraq War. Obama kept this promise that he made to America, and 2 months after he took office, President Obama came up with a plan. The mission for ending the war was labeled Operation Iraq Freedom, OIF, and Obama announced his plan that was intended to bring American combat soldiers home and out of Iraq. Obama had reasonings for bringing the soldiers home. Back in 2008, the U.S. troops counts were at a high of 160 170,000 people. However, it eventually came down to 50,000 people, where Obama's plan was focused on bringing all 50,000 people back by the end of 2011. The only way this plan would fall through would be if the Iraq government requested for soldiers to stay behind. Wars have been started over almost anything throughout history. At the time, our president, President Bush, started the invasion on Iraq back in 2003. The invasion in Iraq began with the means to disarm Iraq of dangerous and powerful weapons and end any mass destruction that may come. And it wanted to put a stop and end the terrorism from the president of Iraq at the time, Saddam Hussein. The ongoing war eventually comes to an end after 8 years on December 15, 2011, by the current president at the time, Barack Obama. After many promises he made, he kept his word, and Operation Iraq Freedom became a success, and he brought home around 50,000 soldiers. It has been said by many that when Obama became president, he abandoned Iraq. The big question being asked was if Obama was responsible for the timing of the withdrawal from Iraq, and if pulling the troops caused the rise of ISIS. President Obama was questioned about the moves he made in regards of ending the war, and many people nowadays have tried to criticize if he made the right moves.